I know it's late there too. I mean, it's funny. Have you, in this quarantine time, it's slowed all of us down a little bit, I think. And here in the States, we're starting to come out of it a bit. How has it changed your routines as far as your day-to-day? I mean, you wear so many hats for what you do. Did it change significantly for you, or were you able to kind of continue with business as usual?
Yeah, no, that's interesting question because you're using the word routine, and it's funny because we used to have like a certain routine by working at the office during the day, listening to some music, singing artists, and touring during the weekend. And of course, since the lockdown, we created a new routine because of the lockdown, because of the curfew. Because of the fact that we are not touring anymore. And I must say, I kind of, I am in a special situation because I just had a baby. So I was kind of happy to stay home and, right. and enjoy some more family time, because as DJs, family time is definitely one of the concern, because we are always out or coming late. So I kind of enjoy this obligation to stay home. So like a new routine.
Yeah, of course, man. And it's interesting. It boggles my mind because, like I said, you wear so many hats, and obviously, I want to talk about your new music and the Track of Time track and all that. But even beyond that, and your sort of return to music, when you think about yourself these days, like, has your idea of who you are, your identity changed over time? Like, do you look at yourself primarily as a label owner, as a DJ, as a producer, as just a music guy?
It's funny again. Wow, really, I love the question, because I thought about it the other day, and I am exactly the same guy today in front of you that I was in 1995 when I started to do my own parties and invite Daft Punk or Dimitri from Paris or Cassius to my parties. I am exactly the same, except I have 2 kids. A bit more of a beard now, but I'm still this young 20 years old guy, who believe into electronic music and believe in bringing people together through music, through house music, through electronic music. And I don't think I've changed. Like, I've done things. That's the good part of my life, and I'm proud of the stuff I've been being part of, but I'm still the same, and being the same means being able to, DJ at night, support artists during the day, work with artists in the studio, work with them on their videos, work with them, on their tour, etc., etc. I like the whole package,
Have you always been that way? Like, you mentioned those early days, just running around as a 20-something kid. What was it that, I mean, this is kind of a broad question, but what was it back then that really got you into it like that? Like, was there kind of a light bulb moment? Was it a party? Was it a club? Was it a certain DJ that really switched it on in your brain?
I think not to mention my song, but the Track of Time. I mean, I was there, in 1992, right at the moment where electronic music became something, like raves, clubs, and this whole culture, was going out of like a super, like underground or, like a strictly gay scene, because of course the music we love, we owe it, to the gay clubs. And in Paris, all the parties I was going were gay clubs, and then they're starting to open it a little bit more. And so it's just a question of time, I was there at the right time, at the right moment, at the right place. And as a magnet, I wanted it all, like I wanted, to do the parties. Then I wanted to DJ. Then I wanted to do behind the DJs. Then I wanted to do a label, etc., etc. And of course, I was lucky because I met two fantastic artists, Daft Punk. And when you're 20 years old, it's of course giving you an energy for the rest of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, let's jump forwards and then we'll jump right back because you mentioned Track of Time, which is your new track, which just dropped, which is what, your first track in a while, right?
Yeah. I've been lazy. Not lazy. That's the wrong word.
Yeah, I don't think you've been lazy.
No, I think I was busy enough, with running the label and giving all my energy, to the artist of the label and making music. Like it takes time, and I'm very lucky because I'm surrounded by all the artists of the label. So all my songs, I'm always finish it with either Mr. Oiseau or Sebastian or even Justice. And this time I work with Mehdi, who recently joined the label, and he gave me like a new energy to produce. And also I called the two artists I love, one in London, Aish Berna and Shelia, who sing on the track. And also having those two vocals on the track makes it definitely more accessible. And this is something new for me because the only songs I've done with lyrics were rap with Murs or with some other guys. But this time I wanted definitely to try to express something. And also this song arrived when we can go back to clubs. We all believe inside of us that Summer 21 is going to become like a new summer of love. Like we are all believing in it. We all want to be together. We all want to party. And this is what Summer 21 is, I hope, offering us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you brought it up, Track of Time, when you were talking about the old times and the old days, and listening to Track of Time. This is something I think you've been very good at in your music. I think you've been good at it with sort of the aesthetic of Ed Banger and the people you've signed to it. But there is sort of it's ahead of its time, but then also seems like it could have been from 10, 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah,
I totally agree. And also because also of the inspiration, the inspiration of the song. I grew up, with sampling music, either in electronic or rap music. And of course, funk from the 70s or the 80s is inside all of us. So, but this track, yes, there is, of course, this connection, with the 80s. And also I wanted, in terms of production, having something more contemporary. So this is why it's rough, it's round. And also I'm from that school of what we call the French touch. So I like vocoder, I like when it's funky. And I believe we managed to do it with this one.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, there's something about it, and I will apologize before I even ask this question because I'm sure you've been asked it before, but every French person I've had on this podcast, I had to ask some form of this question, which is basically the French aesthetic for dance music is there's kind of this timeless cool to it. It seems effortless, although of course we all know it's not. But there's something about it that makes it, whether it's French touch or whether it's, I had people like Bradinsky or Chami on here who all kind of embody what I'm talking about in different ways. And I think you absolutely do as well. Have you ever really tried to pick apart like what that is, whether it's something in French culture, whether it's, the way French kids grow up, whether it's like the music that surrounds you at the time, like where that sort of aesthetic and that sort of, I don't know. I feel like French dance music it hits a little differently, and it always has. And I don't know why I've become obsessed with trying to figure out why that is.
No, again, that's very interesting. I don't think there is like a stereotype or like a recipe, of why the French, we have this French groove musically and visually. But maybe we managed to do something that we kind of delete ourselves, and we embrace the inspiration, we embrace the collaboration, and we are not ashamed of saying that we've been inspired by Chicago house music. We love German electronic repetitive beats from Kraftwerk. We love Motor City, and then we love Salsoul. And all, putting all this puzzle together, I think is French. I know it's weird because we should put our Frenchness in front of everything,
right?
But I believe we are good at embracing different vibes and inspiration, and digest all of this and make it sounds fresh.
Yeah, I mean, yes, absolutely. Two things in what you just said, because I love that. I mean, one, I think that's the definition of cool. You put it so well, is that it's actually being cool is not being cool. It's being the least cool. It's like you said, deleting yourself out of it and being very open about what inspires you and respectful of things that you like, and highlighting those things rather than sort of trying to make it seem like I came up with all of this myself, And I think all of that comes together, and then that actually does make you cooler, rather than somebody trying to project, no, look at me, I'm the one, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. We didn't invent anything. This is the what's the magic, of house music or electronic music. It's a recycling music, and we owe everything, to Detroit, to Chicago, to New York, and then of course, that it's about transmission. The guys from Chicago, they were very proud that, for example, Daft Punk, when you're listening to Teachers, when you're listening Daft Punk, paying respect to all, the scene, Paul Johnson, Sneak, all those guys, from Chicago, was definitely like showing respect. And by showing respect, you get respect yourself. And this is what happened to Daft Punk,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that track Teachers, I think it meant so much to so many people when it came out.
Exactly.
Yeah. And for anybody watching this right now, listening to it later, I mean, if you don't know what we're talking about, Daft Punk Teachers, a song basically listing just all these legends of house music and techno and giving thanks,
Yeah, but that's the funny thing also, Willy, in that song especially, is that they are big upping, they are paying respect, to Masters at Work, Frankie Knuckles, but they're also paying respect to Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys, or Dr. Dre. And that's also like an open mind, and showing that, the scene can be moved, because with music, we've been very always separated. You like house music, you can't like hip hop. You like hip hop, you can't be a heavy metal head. And I am, me, I'm in love. I'm in love with Run DMC, and as much as I'm in love of Metallica, and I know my classic. I know who's Derrick May, I know who's Juan Atkins, and I know who's Jeff Mills, and this all knowledge and passion make who we are.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I mean, that makes me think about your early days, to sort of jump back to what we were talking about a second ago. You as a kid, were you born in Paris? Have you just always been in and around Paris?
Yeah. Born and raised in Paris. Yes.
And so, growing up there, what was the Paris scene like for you as a kid growing up? I mean, what kind of music was around you? And even outside of that, what kind of a kid were you? Like, what was childhood in Paris like?
Well, I had a really smooth and chill childhood in Paris. I'm lucky. I have an older brother. He is 4 years older than me. And I'm saying I'm lucky because it's a chance, like to have someone. He was a guide for me, he introduced me, to The Cure, to Led Zeppelin, to Run DMC, to Pink Floyd, and this is definitely the key of happiness and culture. Having someone proposing you. He wasn't forcing me to listen to Bob Marley or whatever, but I made my own choice by through him. And I picked what I like from his discography, and Paris has always been very it's one of the biggest city in the world, so we were lucky, Michael Jackson was performing, we went. I was lucky. My mom was working for a French radio in Paris.
Oh, okay.
And I was invited to see some concert very early. So very early, in fact, and now I'm discussing with you, I'm realizing things. Maybe when I was 12 years or 10 years old, maybe this is when I started to work on those concerts. I was going to the show, but I was going with my mom backstage, and maybe unconsciously I said, something grew up inside of me, said, I want to make the show happen. So I wanted to be behind. So I think slowly, this is why I started my own parties, because I wanted to create the magic.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a special realization to have at a young age, right? I think it's very easy to look at Michael Jackson, anyone who's up on the stage when you're a kid, and just think it's almost like magic. Like it's
Definitely.
Almost like they're not human, and something is happening that's, outside of normal human life. But then you go backstage and you see all the stage hands, and you see all the production people, and people running around and sweating.
And you're discovering another kind of magic too. That's the thing. I think, of course, there is a magic, of the show, but there is definitely something also very, technical and magic in a way. There is like a choreography, that's a ballet in the back also, because there are so many people involved, and now I'm realizing this is definitely what excites me.
Yeah, that's so true. It's like a private, it's almost like you're let into a secret world, that a lot of people don't have access to or don't have the knowledge of. And so for you, you said you got interested in throwing parties. What was it DJing first? What were you playing instruments? Like musically, how did you start getting yourself out there?
No. For the really beginning for me was through, being like a club promoter.
Okay.
In fact, I have to send love to David Guetta for that. I was doing small parties in Paris, and one day I received a call from David Guetta. We are in 1995, and David at the time was running one of the most beautiful venue in Paris called Le Palace, and he heard about me. He knew that my small parties were cool, and he told me, "Do you want to do your own parties at the first floor of my big club, Le Palace, every Friday night?" Of course, when you have, even back then, David Guetta wasn't a big name of the scene, but he was known, because he was throwing the best party in town. And
what was it about what you were doing that you think he was attracted to? What was it about your parties at the time?
I think he liked the fact that I used to do a lot of skateboard at the time, and I think he liked my capacity of having a night where skateboarders were going in, gay crowd was opening its arm to heterosexual crowd, the mix of it makes it something special, because it was very a mix of different people, of nice people who wanted to party together. The skateboard kids couldn't go in clubs usually, and now they were having fun. So I think he liked this mix and this energy. So he gave me the first floor. To enter my party, you had to go first through the David Guetta's room, and then you had another bouncer to enter mine. So my party was kind of hard to get in,
Right.
And especially it was a small. And luckily I was 20 years old, and I was doing a lot of record shopping at the time. Every weekend I was buying records, and every weekend we were in the same spots, because we had 4 or 5 record stores in Paris at the time. And when I was digging, I met Thomas of Daft Punk. Then I met Cassius. Then I met DJ Deep, DJ Gregory, all those DJs, Bob Sinclair, all those, they were young too. And then I said, oh, I like your record. Let's do something. And slowly I realized that I invited all the French Touch before they became like the French Touch, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's so incredible to think about that, you know, one or two record store kind of thing where everybody's in the same room at the same place. And then to think about, you know, how everybody goes on and where they all end up at the end of it, you know? Like I think I told you before we got on the air that I came up in Chicago, and so Gramophone Records.
Gramophone, yes, of course.
Yeah, I'm sure you know Gramophone. It was the same thing. Not that I had that kind of experience, but I would walk in and you kind of feel that history to it. I love talking about kind of how all of this gets started. Is there anything about those early years where it's small and everybody's digging in the same record store and you're all kind of playing the same parties, and there's maybe not a loftier goal yet? Maybe it's still just this community where we're doing something exciting, we're young, it's fun, and you keep doing it. Is there anything about those days that you miss? Anything you feel like, as everything's gotten so much bigger, anything that got left behind?
No. I mean, I don't miss anything from the past, because like the journey we all had together is so much full of nice souvenir, and also it's way more comfortable nowadays, because of course you're talking about a community, like fun and stuff like that, but it wasn't that easy, technically, in terms of business, in terms of, also, it was at the beginning really French, Now it's amazing that, we can speak with you guys, we can travel, we can transmit, we can express. But no, and also it's also part of the magic of the time. It was this way because it was 1996. But of course today it couldn't be the same, because technology, the way of producing music has completely changed. So no, I don't miss anything, and also the most important, Willy, I don't miss anything, because how I run Headbanger today is exactly the same way I used to handle my parties back in 1995. In fact, it's amazing to speak with you, because you make me say things like very natural and spontaneous. I'm running my label exactly like I did my parties, like spontaneity. I don't think too much, I just, if I feel the people, I'm jumping with them, I'm trying. My only concern is to make things happen.
Yeah, which is incredible. I think that's definitely a key to why you've had the career that you've had up to this point. I mean, so it's funny thinking about, sort of the explosion of Headbanger really when it started hitting the States over here, and you guys started touring a lot over here. I remember those days really well, and I was just talking to I don't know if you know Felix Cartal.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and he was saying how much, all of you and Headbanger and Justice and everybody influenced him in the early years. And he was telling me about a specific memory he had of how he said it was a show he went to. Maybe he even opened up early in his career, where it was, I think, you and Justice and maybe... I don't even know who else, Sirkin or Somi or somebody, all touring together. But he was saying that you guys would all just play together on stage at the same time. It wasn't, sort of what it's turned into now, where it's, a festival lineup of, X person, then X person, then X person. And that kind of community feel, I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense, because that's always how I've perceived Headbanger, is just, we're this family.
Like to make you laugh, Willy. So our dream was to be the Wu-Tang of electronic music. This is we are, like either the Wu-Tang or like me, I have a total admiration and love forever for the Beastie Boys, and we, like in fact, Ed Banger, is the Grand Royal, the label of the Beastie Boys of electronic music. This is there is definitely like a family thing in what we do.
Yeah, and which I think is, I mean, that's obviously a good thing, but I think it's impressive that you've been able to maintain it throughout this whole time, throughout, crazy explosions in popularity and the business growing and changing and all of that, being able to sort of keep the family together. I think that's actually a really big accomplishment. And I think people maybe don't understand how much work and thought can go into that.
Yeah, that's definitely work and a lot of passion. Of course, I'm happy about that, but we have to give credit to the artist also. They all run their own career. Of course, I'm here. Like I was there at the beginning. My main concern, and one of my goal is to be there at the beginning. I love to write the first line of the story, and I can only be happy if, for example, with Justice, we are at chapter 18 now, we've been working together for like 20 years, and that's amazing, The trust, like it's a trust thing. I know, sometimes the word trust, doesn't have the same value, but for me, it means something, and I've been working, and I was lucky enough to meet a lot of people in my life. And when you have my trust, you have me for all your life. But if you mess with this trust, then definitely there is no time for to waste together.
Yeah. No time to waste together. That's great. Well, and I mean, I want to talk more about your production as well. How did making music, not just DJing, not just the parties, but when did you get interested in making music yourself?
Since we started to talk together, we always go back, to the 20s, discovering the raves, the parties, etc., etc. And for my passion for electronic music, I always see it as, like a step-by-step thing. And when you love electronic music, you go to a club, you go to rave, and you dance. So you're part of the culture by being on the dance floor. And this is why, you don't need to be like a big DJ or big label owner to be part of this culture. The people on the dance floor, they are as much important as the headliner in the club,
Yeah.
And so I started on the dance floor. I was dancing my ass off. And I loved it. I was spending my nights in clubs and on the dance floor. And slowly, I said, "Oh, I want to be the DJ playing the music." So I started to DJ in 1995. I bought my techniques and my shitty mixer, and then slowly, I love this electronic music. I want to program beats. I want to sampler. What is a sampler? What is a sequencer? And then I bought my first Akai MPC 2000, 1997, and I started to program beats and make tracks. And I was lucky enough to be surrounded by guys, Thomas and Guiman of Daft Punk. They were in the studio every day. So one day they give me a little equipment, another day they give me a cable, they give me a pedals, they give me something. So I loved it, but for me, it was important, to, and also I forgot in my step-by-step thing, by being in love with electronic music, you have to support the artist. So I went to buy turntables, records, and then buy a lot of records. So I have like 10,000 of records at the office now.
Yep.
And I think supporting a culture, you have to involve yourself. And then, so then I started to use those samplers, drum machine, etc., etc. But I also realized it takes time, So not saying that I don't consider myself as a musician, but of course I'm not spending, like hours and days in the studio on one beat. Then I choose a different way, and this is why I started to work with artists. Created my own label in 2003, and after spending like 12 years with Daft Punk, so it's a long journey,
Yeah.
And I'm not in a rush, and this is why, like a Track of Time is coming out 4 years after my last single, but I'm not really into, like a real artist. I don't need to release an album every 2 years to prepare a tour or something. I think what I've built is strong enough to express and share what my vision of electronic music. And thanks God, this is why people are still trusting me, are booking me. I'm DJing, everywhere. And I'm not running after things, this is I feel very lucky about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me ask you kind of a weird question that you just made me think of, which is, we were talking about the early days and the passion of it and everybody all together just doing it without thinking about it too much. And now we're talking about, 2021, the track of time and this legacy of, all these years with Daft Punk, Ed Banger Records for years and years and years, all of that. Do you feel like you know what you're doing now? Because none of us know what we're doing when we start. And it's a question that I think about a lot because I have a theory that kind of no one knows what they're doing, no matter how collected they seem. But I want to put it to you if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. But I don't think I know what I'm doing. In fact, that's a very philosophical question. But I like not to control everything. In fact, it's funny because everybody is seeing us like as control freaks because everything is artistically calculated. Like we want to do things well. So that's definitely like controlling the artistic side of things. But I love also to not to think too much and not to prepare or write in advance what is supposed to happen.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And I think, leaving space for, those happy accidents, leaving space for the surprises, the random bursts of creativity. I think that's, being able to do that and giving yourself, maybe it's sort of that deleting yourself out of it thing that you were talking about earlier. I think that's so important. I mean, to give a concrete example, this is a very small example, but I think it ties back in. I used to be a Kid Sisters DJ for years.
Oh,
and
okay.
I was with her in Paris while they were shooting the Do 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 video.
No way. Okay. Yeah. With Fafi.
Yeah, with Fafi and
Mehdi.
Yeah, exactly. And
wow.
We were there, it was like midnight or something. And for anybody listening who hasn't seen that video, go look up Carte Blanche, Do Do Do. It's a great video. But my point in all of this is that there's a section of that video where Melissa, Kid Sister, is on a moped and she's on a carousel rapping. And that night when we were all there for that video shoot, kind of none of that was planned. And it was kind of just, we all showed up at a certain place and they're like, well, what do you want to do? There's a carousel. It might look cool if you rapped on the carousel. And it was put together in this kind of just carefree way. And then I rewatched when I knew I was coming to talk to you, I rewatched that video just for fun. And it looks so put together. And aesthetically, it fits so well, I think, with just Ed Banger attitude and visually all of that. But then for me, knowing that it was there and it was just kind of like, oh, let's just have some fun,
But like you just resume our life, and even today, that's the motto of Ed Beggar, let's enjoy it as much as we can. And especially, you're talking about Carte Blanche. We lost DJ Mehdi 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And the energy he left us and he gave us is all about that, all about let's enjoy it as much as you can.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, of course, RIP to Mehdi. It's amazing in 4.5 years of doing this podcast, how many people I talk to who you wouldn't necessarily expect cite him as an influence or somebody important or, his music touching them in important ways. I mean, yeah, not to, we don't have to go far down this road if you don't want to, but just for anyone who might not know, I mean, if you just think about DJ Mehdi kind of in a general sense, I mean, do you have any memories that pop into your head a lot? Any impressions? Just if you hear his name, what do you think about?
Oh yeah, when I have no problem, like this is the good part of it. I have, of course, it was a tragedy, when Mehdi passed away. But talking about him, is kind of having him with us, and that's the best sensation I have, and he's with me every day. He was my best friend. He was my sidekick. He was he gave the name of the label.
Is that
and
right?
He was. Sorry?
Is that right? I didn't know he gave you the name for the label.
Yeah. He gave the name of the label, and also he was definitely like the magnet. He was attracting everybody around him. He was an incredible DJ. He was definitely one of the best party animal in the galaxy, and he was also a very talented music producer. And he had this fire in him coming from the French suburb, producing French hip hop, and kind of bringing a revolution into it, because he started to, put some upbeat into the French rap, and he won some, like gold records with his French band here, and slowly get attracted more and more by house music, and he went into it 100%, and he enjoyed his life as much as possible. He enjoyed every little bit of it, like traveling, recording, meeting Kid Sister, meeting like A-Track. It was like he was the most enthusiastic character,
Yeah.
So he's definitely, we're missing him every day. But again, as I'm saying it with a smile, because the energy and the fire, he gave us, is enlightening our life.
Yes, absolutely. I have this one memory of him. I didn't get to meet him very many times, but there was one time when I think it was Carte Blanche came and they played a show in Chicago at this venue that is gone now called the Green Dolphin. And the Green Dolphin had on Monday nights, it was the longest running house music night in the country for something like, over 10, maybe 20 years, something like that. And they came through and they played this sort of historic house night in Chicago. And obviously they killed it. And it was such a fun night. And you could tell how much fun Mehdi was having up there. And it's that night. I mean, I barely even talked to him that night, but I just have this very concrete memory of him up there smiling, DJing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He was a DJ smiling and dancing. That's the best you can see from a DJ, DJ dancing as much as you dance on the dance floor.
Yeah, I love that you said that. Well, I mean, there's so much to talk about. When I knew we were coming to talk, I kind of already knew we weren't going to be able to get to everything. And I didn't want to focus too much on Daft Punk, because I'm sure everyone always asks you about that constantly. But you did mention, when you were young in your 20s, that you did meet the guys from Daft Punk. But, how did that relationship sort of get formalized, and you officially started working with them? Like, I think it's always interesting to talk about the beginnings of things like that.
Yeah, but I'm happy. I have no problem to speak about it, because it's part of my life. It was definitely the first music chapter of my life. Luckily, I wrote some other chapters, but the Daft Punk chapter is definitely like a very important to me. And in fact, we did not formalize much, because we were 20 years old at the time. I was doing my parties, and I just had a lunch with Thomas of Daft Punk, and he said, "Oh yeah, we like your energy. We like you have like a good contact with people. We are in the studio right now." So I went to the studio with Thomas, and he played me like they were working on Around the World.
Right.
And I was like, wow, it was insane. And they say, yeah, we are working on an album at the moment. It's going to be finished next year. But then while we are in the studio, we need someone to answer to the fax, because at the time it wasn't even emails,
Right.
I'm sure a lot of people who are watching or listening would say, well, what's the fax?
What's a fax machine? Yeah.
And
Google can tell you guys.
and then so my first job was to answer to the people who said, "Oh, I want to book Daft Punk," because they were slightly they had a little bit of a fame on the underground scene, like they were signed on this Scottish label Soma, and they released like a bunch of EPs, Rolling and Scratching, Daft Punk, The New Wave, Indo Silver Club, and the buzz was already starting again on the underground electronic scene. But people wanted them to play, like in Scotland, in Berlin, in Barcelona, and my role was to say, "Oh, thank you for the offers, but the boys are in studio." And I spent 12 years of my life saying no to people with a smile. And and this is why I'm pretty good at I'm a good diplomat, like in that diplomacy. Because my role was to not to upset anyone, just to explain like, those guys, they are working on their music, and we'll see. But then of course slowly they start to open, and we did like a few tours all around the world, and it was the best time of my life, because this is when I learned everything. It was also a different time. It was like a kind of a pioneering time, like they were pioneer, because they were one of the first big electronic act to sign with a major company. At the time it was Virgin, and then Daft Punk. I remember having some meeting with the Virgin bosses. They had Daft Punk as big as Janet Jackson or Smashing Pumpkins,
right.
And that was something, for electronic music, and even more for French artists. French music wasn't taken seriously. Like everybody, when you were talking about French music, they were making fun of Baguette and Beret,
right?
And
of course.
and then Daft Punk definitely put the light on the French scene, and of course Cassius, Motorbass, Air, some other French band, bring this energy to the world. But so to go back to your question, we never really formalize anything. Like they didn't. If they needed a manager, I wasn't a manager. I was 20 years old. I didn't know nothing about music business. All I knew and all I had in my bag was a lot of energy and a passion for this music. And I've been fan of Daft Punk since day one, and I am still fan of Daft Punk today. Like I think to give your life as much as I did, you need to believe and you need to love the project you're working on. And what I did with Daft Punk, it's exactly the same sensation I had with DJ Mehdi or I have with Justice. Like I'm definitely like I am in total admiration of those guys.
It's funny talking about, the saying no to everybody, because it makes me wonder about the few times that they did say yes. Mm-hmm. Like, were you working with them? So I was born in Minneapolis, and the Midwest rave scene in the 90s kind of has its own...
even further.
Yeah, you know where I'm going with this. And for people who don't, it was, I believe, Daft Punk's first U.S. performance, right?
Yes.
Was at this rave in a field in Wisconsin called
1996.
Yeah, something like that, which I was not there, but just being in the Midwest rave scene at that time, it sort of turned into this like mythical event. And I don't know if you saw this, the promoter from that recently pulled out the old rider from that show, like Daft Punk's rider, and posted it up. And he was... Yeah,
I didn't see this.
I'll see if I can find a link and send it to you. It was really fun. It was kind of just like, it was very polite. It was like, these are the flights we would like, but if they're not available, that's okay. We can talk about it. And, the list of tech equipment was all very bare bones, all very, starting off. Like, do you remember, whether it's that event or other like early events, what would make Daft Punk say yes? What was attractive about an event enough to make you think they should do it, or to make them want to do it?
Well, it depends. At that time, they were traveling, everywhere. They were playing in Glasgow, they were playing in Brussels, in Manchester. So it was, like 1996 or 1997, we were accepting booking, in a normal way, we had a certain connection, with people at the end in London or stuff like that. But it's really after, because those years were the early days. So of course, we were carrying all the equipment, half of the studio. When Daft Punk was playing live, we didn't have road managers. We were carrying the Daft Punk equipment, the 909, the sequencers in suitcases. It wasn't even flight cases. It was suitcases. And this is why we were always traveling, like we were a bunch of friends together, helping them. But, that's the cool story of this band. It's because it started as really like a college band. And then slowly and slowly getting more and more attention. And when you have more attention, you have more pressure. And with the pressure comes, the business things. And luckily with them, after the business, the success, and then you can build something. But what people need to know, it's Daft Punk, they always, the more success they had, the more they were putting this success and this and the money into their own project. So they were non-stop, they didn't want to stop. When they had a big advance from Virgin, people were kind of, they're gonna get rich, they're gonna get money. No, they were investing, and they produce videos, they produce shows, and etc. etc. And slowly they built an empire. But you don't build an empire, from bullshit or fakeness. And this is why, I admire them, and I will always, defend them, because what they did is unique, noble, and nowadays, it's so precious. No one could do any of what they did,
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And it makes me think about, the definition of success is different for everybody, right? I think especially in the modern era for DJs and producers, as with social media and all that, I think people sort of get influenced or trained to think that there's only one right way to succeed, or that you have to do X, Y, Z in order to be famous, or in order to, whatever it is. And it's fake, right? It's like, and
also they wrote their own history, and they create their own rules, and that's the magic of this band. But most important also, but people know about that, they started with a completely opposite anti-system vision of the show business. They didn't want to appear. They were like, okay, we don't care about that. We don't want fame. Right. What we want is, is success and respect and stuff like that. But they didn't want fame,
Right. And it's funny because that's such a great goal. That's such a good aim for it. And like you said, when they started off doing any of this, there wasn't a roadmap for it. There weren't like masked DJs. Now is almost a cliche in certain circles. But back then, that was unheard of, right? And it's funny how it's sort of our ideas of what is cool and what is forward thinking can change over time. Did it become one of those things where they set out to do it anonymously and not to make it about them? But I feel like there was a certain subsection where people just got obsessed with finding out who it was.
Yeah, but it wasn't the plan, In fact, they didn't do it. A lot of people are questioning, was it their idea to create the mystery? No, it wasn't an idea. It was a wish. It was like a way of living. They didn't want, to handle the fact that people watching you, the fact that they were not interested by this. They were interested by people, being in love with their music or with their videos or with their shows. But it's definitely not a plan or like a brainstorming. let's hide ourselves. People
Right.
will, I think it was, they were asking the people to use their imagination, and that's the best. In fact, that's definitely, they were asking people to create with them, in fact.
Yeah. Oh, I love that you said that. Something I talk about a lot on here, because I think we have a lot of up and coming artists or aspiring artists who listen to this, and that idea of building a world that people can enter and people can interact with and that people can kind of come and live in and hang out in is such an important idea. And that makes total sense. You just kind of connected something in my brain that was like an early goal for Daft Punk. I mean, this is interesting to me, talking about them. And then many, many years later, let's jump ahead a little. You've started Ed Banger Records, some big records there out of the gate. And then you started working with Justice, who, also became this phenomenon in their own right. Was there anything I'd love to hear how you kind of met them and started working with them, but also, after or during this experience with Daft Punk, is there anything you learned working with them that you could sort of apply to working with Justice and seeing, when they started to pick up steam and when they started to explode? Was there anything from the past that you were able to kind of apply to what was happening then?
Oh yeah. There is one basis that is still on for what I do is the fact that being patient, things will come if they need to come, but let's not rush anything. And of course, this is what I've learned with Daft Punk, and this is exactly what we are doing, with Justice, for example. That's like it's a philosophy, and also on a more creation and artistic side of things, believe in what you do, and exactly what we were saying earlier, create an environment, create your world, and this is, I think, what we managed to do pretty well with Justice. They have their own sound, but also, when it's a Justice video, when you see a Justice show, the last Justice show at Coachella, Frank Ocean, Pharrell Williams, they all came after the show and they were mind blown, to have those kind of talents coming to you saying, wow, what just happened is a proof that you managed to create something that is mind blowing, and to build this, it takes years. This is why I'm 46 years old, so I love 2021, and I'm not saying before it was better, because I still believe future will be better. I believe in a better future, but it's while I'm saying that, it's just to say to the kids who are listening, it takes time, even though today you can, after this interview, you can go check and learn about Daft Punk and listening to all the songs of Daft Punk. It's a luck. You're lucky to be able to have access to so much information with your laptop in a click, but it takes time, to understand things, to digest things, to create, to invent, reinvent. So I love, earlier I was telling you, it's been 20 years I'm working with Justice. People think Justice is like a 3 years thing. No, it's been 20 years. It takes time.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And so let me throw this one at you. I was reading some old interviews of yours when I knew we were coming to talk. And there was this one quote. This is just like a random thing, I think, to some random blog. And you were talking about a show you had just done. And I think the interviewer was talking about, the fact that you were sort of maybe on the floor when you performed or close to the crowd, something like that. And you were saying that, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but something about how that's how it should be. And then the exact quote was, DJs are not fucking rock stars. And it struck me as interesting because I know exactly what you mean by it. And I think that goes back to everything we've been talking about. It's the right attitude to have. But then also in a funny way, I think you're partially responsible for DJs becoming rock stars.
Yeah.
Daft Punk and Justice.
I totally accept your the the parallel and the confrontation of those two. Because I, in fact, I believe in both. Like and exactly as you said, we kind of created, the attitude with the image. Like Justice, they are definitely rock stars. People, they have posters of them in their bedroom. But what I meant about maybe playing, on the ground floor is maybe still being accessible, still being, not behind a window or behind a glass,
Yeah.
So that's definitely, I think it can be, like a yin and yang situation, and also maybe I was also making fun of a certain type of rockstar DJs, because
I know that type.
and exactly what I mean. But I'm no one to judge, because I'm, I'm doing my things also. We love to be in magazine, to shine. We love to be when people know our face in a restaurant or in a club. It's always nice,
Absolutely.
But there is a difference between recognition and fame. And at least when people are, asking for a selfie or something, they know who we are and what we do. It's not just, I saw you on TV, you're the DJ. This is the difference between, like the rock star, the fame, and, like the recognition we are looking for example.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I wasn't even trying to put you on the spot with that. I just thought it's interesting how you can start something with intentions, and then at a certain point, it gets so big that it almost doesn't belong to you anymore, if you know what I mean. Like people,
completely,
yeah. People take what you put out there and interpret it however they want, and it takes on a life of its own, right? Whether it's Justice getting so big that they are literal rock stars, or whether it's, the mystery of Daft Punk's mask, all of that. It's at a certain point, it's like if you do your job well enough, it doesn't belong to you anymore, which, as I'm saying that, is kind of a weird thing. Like you have to give up ownership of your ideas at a certain point.
Yeah, but that's again, we keep saying, we keep talking about magic.
Yeah.
That's the magic of art and what we're doing in music. We are writing stories, we are creating characters, we are inventing a world, and then we invite people in this world, and each of the people listening or watching is interpreting, is imagining his own way, and that's definitely a good thing. And you still have to live this mystery, because if you're giving too much, if there is no mystery, then it's a bit boring,
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, I think that, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but another sort of thread that I think runs through all of Ed Banger and the whole aesthetic of what you do is there's this sense of fun and humor to it to a certain extent, even at the biggest levels. Some of Justice's biggest videos, all of that. There's an element of just fun to it that I think helps keep it. Maybe that's part of that aesthetic too, now that we're talking about it. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but keeping it grounded in that sort of fun, humorous, like this is a big deal, but also we're just kind of fucking around way.
Yeah, exactly. That's the motto of our life, I think the sense of humor, is a proof of intelligence. And I'm not saying that for us. I'm saying, even though I believe we are very smart guys.
Oh no, I'll say that about you. Yeah.
But no, we love to make fun. First we love to make fun of ourselves, so we don't take ourselves seriously. So that's the starting point, and starting like that, it's allow you, to have fun with everybody, and again, that's to shout out to the Beastie Boys. Some other band, some other people had the same, fun life and fun they want to share with people, and this is exactly what we try to do.
Yeah, well, I love all of that, man. I've just really enjoyed this conversation. I want to talk a little bit more about the new stuff, about Track of Time. we didn't really touch on the video yet. So let's do a two-part. Let's talk a little bit about the video, which is, again, really funny. It's just a fun, hilarious concept for a video. And then after that, sort of what are you excited about right now? And what are you thinking about? What are you working on? This doesn't have to be promote whatever's coming up, but just sort of what's fun for you right now in what you're doing.
Right now, wow, man. It's been crazy because 2020 was, of course, for all of us like a year, floating in our head, and 2021 have been so busy for us. We've been releasing, Gaspar of Justice solo album, the first album of Mehdi. We've signed some new artists. We are about to release like a French house producer called Mad Ray, which is very talented, and we've been very, very busy. And then for the next half of the year, we have a new Mr. Oiseau, we have a new Breakboat, we have I already have a new BZP on a single coming out before Christmas. I'm working on a book with a French DJ called DJ Deep, which I'm sure you will love. A book about our passion of house and electronic music.
Oh, amazing!
So yeah, I keep it busy. Sometimes it's a bit schizophrenic. My real name is Pedro Winter, but my friends are calling me BZP, and sometimes I'm like, oh, I want to go back to Pedro because BZP is weird, but this year I'm definitely BZP. I don't have any minute for me. It's crazy, but yeah, I'm excited. And I'm always excited by electronic music. I think it's the world I want to spend my life. This is where people are mixing things together, and it's innovative, it's avant-garde, it's futuristic, and this is what I like.
That's beautiful. Are you the kind of person? Do you get antsy if you're not busy? Do you have a hard time going on vacation, relaxing, that kind of thing?
No, I must say now I'm an older man. I kind of enjoy it, chill on holidays and taking care of my family. So no. I'd love to be able to sometimes to cut, but I'm also aware of my engagement with my artists. I have to be there for them. So it asks a lot of time.
Yeah, of course. Well, just looking at a couple questions here and we'll get you out of here. Okay, so Mirror DJ in the chat wants to know, I think this is sort of a joke question, but what's the best way to get into music production in order to get onto Ed Beggar one day?
No, that's not a silly question. And in fact, you know what? When either it's Ed Beggar or another label, don't send orientated music. I receive so much fake Justice sound or stuff like that, and I recommend the young producers try to surprise. It's if you want to be on Ed Beggar, don't send me Ed Beggar type of music. Because I have Justice, I have Breakboat, I have Mr. Oiseau, so I don't need this kind. Of course, you can be inspired, and that's I can only love you for that, but if you send me music, don't send me a fake Justice.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I've heard other people say the same thing. Is if you want to be on the label you love, send something that sounds different than the label you love.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. Parking asks, are you still skating? Because I feel like Pedro is still a skater at heart.
Wow. That would, I'm now I'm 46. So I'm definitely bad and not in good shape, but I'm definitely a skateboarder at heart. I'm following all those skateboarders on Instagram today. It's the level of skating is insane, and skateboard culture is for me as much as important as my love for house music. And those two foundation electronic music and skateboard culture are the cultures that made me and made me see the world as I see it today. Try to create my own vision of it, and definitely to the younger people listening, skateboarding is definitely one of the best school of life.
I love that. And it's so funny, the longer you stay in this game, the more skateboarders or former skateboarders you meet. There really is some kind of connection there that I've never put my finger on.
And just a little note about that, my favorite skater of all my life is a guy from California called Ray Barbie. He's a legend. And with the time, we managed to cross paths together, and he's a musician, he's a photographer, and it's amazing to realize that skateboard brings, and reveals artists, and it's. I could speak about my love for skateboarding for hours. So
yeah. Well, we'll do that for part 2, maybe.
We'll do that, exactly, Willy.
All right, 2 very quick questions, and we're out of here. El Juke in the chat is doing my job for me and is asking about the Track of Time video, and wants to know, did you get to meet the actors from the Track of Time video? And I'd love to just hear a little more about, how that concept came together. And for the people who haven't seen it, you got to go watch I don't even want to spoil it, but it's you got to go watch the Track of Time video.
So the Track of Time video was directed by a French director called Baptiste Penetti-Cobra. And he's a young artist. He didn't do quite a lot of videos yet, but he's definitely very talented. He has his own vision. He knows exactly what he wants. So, and this is good as an artist to have someone you can trust and who takes you to his world. And he had this idea of taking 20 kids, put them in a room and forced them to dance for 24 hours. And I love the idea because we've been locked down for a year, but we couldn't dance. We couldn't meet people in clubs. And I love the concept of putting people again inside a room and ask them to dance. And of course, for those who know, it's very inspired by a novel, an American novel, in fact, called They Shoot Horses, Don't They?
Oh, right. Yeah.
So it's inspired by this, by those dance marathon. And the casting he did, he took only young French guys from Paris and around. And I love, again, it's important to show, the young French scene, like mixed crowd, like from all origins. And they are dancing together, they are partying together, and we have enough of this separated world. We need to, not being political or whatever, but music and art has also a role, and those little details as to make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's something about watching that video that you really do get that sense. Like, because I know watching it that they've been forced to be there and dance for 24 hours, there's like a second level of reality added onto it where you look at them being goofy or running around or whatever it is, and you can kind of understand that, no, this is very real. This isn't somebody saying, okay, now you push this person. It's not directed. It's very authentic, which I really liked.
It's super authentic, of course, because it's a music video. At some point, we ask them to dance. When they do the dance, we ask them for that. But the concept was really to lock them. At the end, they were destroyed. They were all wet. They were, they had like a problem in their feet and everything. But the concept was very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So last question, and we'll get out of here. I think this is a good one to wrap it up on because it kind of ties back to what we started this whole conversation talking about. Fano wanted to hear more about the gay club scene in Paris early on and how that influenced you, and maybe if you have any memories that kind of run in your brain of that. And I think just to tie it all in, I think it's perfect as a way of sort of, we talked about respect and we talked about being open about your influences and giving thanks to the people who started what we're doing now. And I would also love to hear more kind of about that early gay scene that influenced you.
So let's go back to Paris in 1995, like even before. So in 1992, the first rave I used to go, 1992, and to go to those raves, we had to listen to a radio because at the time only or find flyers in some record stores and stuff like that. But the only radio that was playing house music and give the good meeting point to go to this rave, to go to that street, to go to this thing was a gay radio called FG, Fréquence Gay.
Okay, nice.
And we were listening to this radio. And of course, personally, I was listening for the music and for the stuff. But of course, half of the radio was a talk, how do you say, like a meeting, a call, like a flirting thing,
Yep.
But very FG was so important. And of course, at the same time, the French club where you can hear house music were the gay clubs. So of course, at the beginning, I was a bit too young to understand and discover this. But 1995, I realized like I could go in, let's push the door. And rather than, like people being scared, what I'm going to see behind this door, like people naked, whatever. In fact, we just see happy people dancing, having fun and welcoming us with a smile on their face. And I had the best time of my life. And I really, embrace this movement. Luckily for me, they adopt me. I was super friendly and welcome. And in fact, I kind of, even reinvent myself, dress well, having fun, change color of my hair. It was definitely hedonism, having fun all together. And I think this was the pure moment of what house music means to me, bringing people together, when you're listening, to now I have a brother, sister.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I have a memory.
Man, what?
Help us.
Yes.
Help us on the chat.
Yeah, help us, please.
Promise Land, Joe Smooth.
There you go.
It's for me that was the promised land. And then, as I said earlier, slowly, I was adopted in those gay clubs, and they gave me the night, and I was doing my own club night on a Thursday night in a gay club, and we mix people together, and this is why, exactly as you said, we have to pay respect. We have to again teach the young girls. Sometimes like on the internet, they are being a bit stupid, a bit. We have to know where it started, who we need to protect, who we need to respect, and that's life, And I think, Willy, to end this talk, we started this discussion with deleting yourself by respecting the people you are inspired with. We are lucky to shine, but we didn't invent anything, So let's enlighten all those inspiration.
Yeah, that's so beautiful, man. I completely agree. And I think that's the story you just told. That's the perfect illustration of how music can bring people together and just bypass any confusion. It's you going to the gay club, and maybe before you go, there's like a separation. You're over here and they're over there. But it bypasses any kind of conversation. Just once you're there all together, listening to the same song, dancing together, it's just one is the same thing. It's beautiful, man. And I think that's the power of what we do. I think if we're doing our jobs well, that's maybe the noblest aim we could have, right?
Yeah, and also when you look at today, sadly, I can see the separation of all those worlds, and this is again something that's scary, when like we get rich, like in terms of feelings by being together, and today you see like the gay scene is getting closed, and those guys on the right, on the left, and I can't wait, for everybody to reunite again.
Yeah.
But let's not go too political now. This is late.
Yep. Nope. Absolutely, man. And thank you again for
let's
doing
bring
this
people
late.
together.
Absolutely. Well, this has been fantastic, man. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had fun. Is there anything else we didn't talk about? Anything on your mind you want to get out there before we say bye?
You know what, Willy? What I can tell you, let's see if people enjoyed this show. And if you want a chapter 2 with Willy Joy and BZP, just let us know and we will make it happen.
Absolutely, man. Well, this has been fantastic. I'm gonna send you a DM with that old Daft Punk contract. I'll dig that out after this.
Yes.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much.
Bye-bye, guys.
Take care.
Salut, Willy.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.